Third time's a charm. Welcome to my living room. My name is Lana Labonte, and I am here to uplift, support, inspire, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version of you you are meant to be. Why you are here, because you are unique and you have a gift to share with the world. And not one of us is meant to be a cookie cutter of the other. So, with all the craziness in this world that is the divine comedy, because you have to have a sense of humor, that when you get the full picture, you can see there's balance and harmony. That what seems like an upset is just disrupting your comfort, right? So we swing on the pendulum of life. We go way over there. We want to feel all the highs. But with all those highs come the lows. So we swing over to the other side. Woo, how low can you go? Because the deeper you dive, the higher you'll rise. Welcome to the shit show, or the clown world, whatever you want to call it. It's all perfect. It's our judgment around it. It's our belief, our belief systems, which are the biggest bullshit, BS, that we could ever be addicted to, thinking, see, it's all with the head. The head wants to be right. The heart just simply wants to be happy. And a lot of times, the heart will give way to the head at the behest of the body. The body is your truth indicator. That's why we use kinesiology, muscle testing, because the body will tell on the mind every time. It is the biggest tattletale. It will call it out on its bullshit, its BS, by saying, we don't align. Ooh, that feels uncomfortable. The body is literally telling you at every moment what is true and what is untrue, what is out of balance and what is in balance. When you are in your neutrality, you will recognize you don't see the extremes. You don't see the one half or the other half, because neutrality is two sides to the whole. Incomplete. Complete, not incomplete. Two halves of the whole equals a whole, right? So just like everything in this life is duplicity, it's duality. There's polarities, pushing and pulling them together and apart. This is the divine cosmic energy dance that we all participate in. That we have this collective consciousness. The cosmic stream is always running by you, and you're always participating. You are giving to it and you are taking from it, conscious or unconscious. It is a collective consciousness. And whether you want to be live or believe in it, see, this is the interesting thing, because there's a lot of people speaking what they call their truth. Doesn't mean it's true. Just because you have an opinion doesn't make it fact. It's a question of your attachment to it. Always question what you think you know, what you've been told. It all needs to be challenged. And that's what makes life so amazing, is that things change from time to time. And the key is getting good with okay and being okay with change, because change is like death. And life is a series of cycles, and it's a series of experiences. And the mind is filled with thoughts. It takes these words, these thoughts, and it constructs. And so the energy in the mind, if you don't mind, it won't matter. If you mind, you will create the matter. That is the law of attraction. That is manifestation, baby. That the mind is the energy. The brain is the banker holding the currency, and where your attention goes, energy flows, and the currency of your thoughts consistently make those attentions grow. Because where attention goes, energy flows, and just like in banking, you appreciate it. It will grow into more of whatever it is you are focused on. So the currency of your thoughts is very important where you place your attention to, because where your attention is going, you are literally, conscious or unconscious, creating it. That is your reality. That is our reality, and we share this reality together. But your experience and my experience are not the same. My past and your past are not the same, but they're interwoven, and they do influence subtly and profoundly. You don't even have to know somebody, but they're influencing your life in some way, shape, or form, literally, figuratively, or they're not. That's a paradox. But we have this collective consciousness, and sometimes you get these thoughts that drop in, and you're like, "Ooh, what was that from? Who does that belong to?" Please let me know in the comments if you can hear me. Please let me know, because sometimes, actually, let's check that. Let us check that. Best way to do it? Check on my computer.
Best way to do it?
There we go. Okay, so we have sound. I had to check the sound because we got Mercury retrograde shenanigans going on right now. And it's hilarious because I've tried several times to go live today, but it's okay because the third time's the charm. Let's go back to energy, frequency, vibration, because ultimately that is what is in everything. Every little thing is connected. The threads of the energy, there is no disconnect, there is no separation. You cannot deny it because you are it. And you are participating and managing and creating, producing, performing, you're acting on the stage of life. All the world's a stage. We are not just the one individual having this, whatever you want to call it, experience, because the story is always seems to be in repeat mode. But we don't experience by ourselves. We have to engage with another who can mirror it back to us, because life is about relationship, and how you relate to another is how you relate to your inner self. You have to learn to understand and discern what is yours and what is not yours, but yet at the same time it is yours. The paradox of life is that we're denying things that are just as much ours as they are one another. Like, this is an interesting thing that I reflect upon all the time. It's like you want to say, oh, there's crazy stuff out in the world is happening out there. But where attention goes, energy flows. So if you are recognizing it, you spot it, you got it. If it triggers you, that's your work to do. It's showing you what's going on within you. If it appears in your external world, it's because something's unresolved in your internal world. Or it's showing you also where you're healed and you're whole. So as us humans, you know, we go through this life, we're born into the original sin where the trauma of humanity is you must prove yourself worthy, prove yourself innocent, prove yourself blah, 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 whatever. You know, worthy of love is the ultimate goal, right? But funny enough, the script got flipped, and then now most of us find ourselves trying to prove ourselves innocent in a world where they're supposed to prove you guilty until prove you innocent until guilty. You like most of what you see on the world stage is a bunch of opinions turned into accepted fact or normal. It's not. I mean, just because you see it doesn't make it true. It's all about perception. It's also the filtering, the screen, the delivery. How are you receiving it? Are you taking it in through your five senses? Are you seeing it in real time? Or are you seeing it through a scrying black screen? It's because these devices have become our vices. And so the question is, what is real? And very few people will accept what is real and right in front of their face versus what is actually playing out in these little devices. Great example. I was reflecting upon this earlier today. Just going back around this whole idea. Let's talk about touching upon some revelations and truths around my travel, for example. I witnessed during my travel how most people are just under the spell of needing to be told what to do, what they see, what to believe, that it's easier to submit and be, fall under the spell and not realize that you are under a spell, and then reinforce it by recasting that same narrative, the same story, the spell casting, defending your enslavement, defending your misery, because misery loves company, right? Instead of empowering yourself, you disempower yourself. When we tell a story, we're reinforcing the story or the spell upon ourselves, not realizing that the tongue is the biggest wand of all time. So it reminded me of September 11 of 2001. One of my best friends from high school was living in the Bronx at the time, and he said to me when I did speak to him finally, because I was concerned, I didn't know where he was. He says, "Oh my gosh, Lana, I could see everything from my bedroom window, but I didn't know what to believe, so I ran to the TV for it to tell me." Ever since that day, look at how easily we've been swayed to put more faith. Well, that was interesting. More faith, more trust outside of ourselves. We learned to outsource more on that day than any other before. That the history that is truly the mystery of truth, story, the story was never told according to the truth. So many of us are unveiling. It is being revealed to us. The veil is thin. It is being taken off. I mean, we're in Mercury retrograde. What a great time to reveal some truths. That the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, first off, I don't recommend it necessarily. There's a certain level that you might be curious, but don't let it take you out, because it's just as much of a distraction. It will take you out of living your life. This is the trickery of this realm, is to keep you from being who you came here to be. To get caught up in the interpretations of man trying to control us, man creating rules to govern over us. Just the word government, very few people recognize that it means to rule over, govern, rule over, meant mind. We've forgotten how to go and break down the words and to recognize the spell that's been cast upon us. The idea that we need somebody to rule over our minds, that's reinforcing and saying, I need someone to tell me what to think. And that is what we're really seeing in the world and have been seeing for a very long time, or could say under that spell, and then reinforcing it by the stories we tell. People defending their abusers and accusers as if they need them. It's the most toxic, codependent relationship we've ever been in. That the United States is the youngest nation. Yet, how did it become a superpower? It had to be selected. And you know, if voting was worked, if voting worked, it would be illegal. Because nobody is actually selected by the people. We don't elect, we don't select. Voting is simply a demonstration of a ritual of loyalty. You're pledging your loyalty. That's all a vote does. But until you can get over the hump and stop playing the same game over and over again, you continue to submit to being governed over, your mind under the spell of control that was handed over. See, and I was reflecting with my sister about this like a week or so ago. We were talking about, I said, you know, it's interesting, when I lived in Europe, you know, you have a lot of immigration, you have a lot of gypsies. And gypsies don't typically bother you. You know, a lot of times, like living in Italy, you'll see they'll show up at the stoplights and they're begging for money. A lot of times, boy, they're clever. They're not even their own children. Like, they're a commune of people. And then I had friends that would tell me they saw somebody looked familiar at like a gathering with kids. And they're like, how do I know you? You look so familiar. And it turned out it was one of the gypsy kids. So what people don't understand, cities, states, countries, territories, borders, were all created to be able to maintain control over the masses. All of us. That in itself is its own enslavement. To think that you are loyal to your nation, to believe that you have to be patriotic or support and defend your sports team, your school, your alma mater, your, the list goes on. But what we don't realize is it's our attempt, because it is the basic need of human nature, is to connect with people, to find commonality. So what do? We join organizations, we join groups. We find familiarity through our associations, through these labels, which are also our limitations. We don't even recognize that it's a chosen form of slavery and submission to a system that feeds off of us. That the idea that you belong to a certain country, I am from this place, I belong, or this is what my ID says, or my passport. The fictional character, lost at sea, literally. The word corporation comes from corpse of nation. So corpse is a dead body, right? Corpse of a nation. We can break that word down. I'm not going to do that here. That even goes even further back. But you have to recognize the casting of the spell is through the languaging that is used. And you yourself have been raised, I have been, this is how I learned this, is that fortunately I had a mother that brought us to the libraries and taught us how to research, taught us how to look up the meaning of words and to break them down. They used to teach phonics. They used to teach all of this stuff when I went to school. But they're dumbing that down because they don't want people who are free thinkers. They want people who can copycat, which is not why we're here. And that's how I started out the video the first time, was talking about we're not here to be copycats of one another. We all individually are unique and have something to offer. There is not a single soul, literally, that is a copycat or a perfect carbon copy of one another. But they want that because that's easier to maintain. And then when you get enough people believing in something, then you can train them to also police one another. And this is the problem. And history has taught us this. I mean, it's not a surprise, but yet people don't learn from history because they get into a certain cycle of habitual life living. The deeper the groove, the harder to move. To remove yourself from the deepened groove requires small steps and deliberate, intentional, daily changes to your life. Hey, I'm over here having to make changes too. I get it. And change is like death. So every time you have to make a change, no matter how small and no matter how profound, even, we think in terms of death, right? Death is a major life change. But they're all mini deaths. Every change you make in your life is the end of something and the beginning of something new. Again, two halves of the whole, the story. So there comes the mourning, the grieving, the honoring, the celebrating, like how that past has served you in your life, and how you are also celebrating the coming in of the unknown, the unfamiliar, which in itself is scary to most because, believe it or not, most people, they like the comfort, but you don't grow inside your comfort zone. You seek out things that are familiar so that you can stay on what would be considered a form of a homeostasis, but you need to be shaken up and woken up to your own habitual routines. Because again, the nervous system gets reinforced through the sympathetic parasympathetic switching, okay? Even if it's a challenge to your belief system, even if it's a physical challenge or a mental or spiritual, emotional, whatever the challenge, you need to be challenged in life or you'll never grow. You do not grow by staying small and in the like, oh, I just want to follow this path. This is all I want in my life. The biggest changes in my life have always brought me the most impactful and insightful and sometimes painful, but yet magical, amazing insights, but also gifts, because there's always a silver lining. There's always a blessing in the lesson of life. It's our belief systems around them that really create the suffering, the struggle. You can say, oh, this isn't a bad thing. I'm just trying to get rid of this. I'm trying to get over this little hump. Like I'm going to share an example, and I love my dad. So we're going through some things where he just wants to be done with it. And I said, Dad, I love you. Take a deep breath. Honor that this is your own mind trying to talk you out of the grieving of what is changing. Like you're going through a life death, a major life change right now. So with that said, you have to honor that transition in the process, because if you don't, it will sneak up on you and catch you off guard in the midst of starting something new. And you'll wonder, why am I not enjoying this as much as I think I should, right? Because we should on ourselves all the time. When you go through a major life change in your life, whether it is a death or a lifestyle change, or let's say job change or status change or moving from one location to another, you have to honor the grieving cycle, the cycle of life. That when one thing changes, it changes everything. You don't even recognize it in the moment you think you're making changes, but it's already occurring. You're already getting those, like the itchies of like, what the heck? I don't know. Oh, this doesn't feel so good. Like my dad's cat is sick, and so he knows he needs to put her to sleep, and he's struggling. He remembers what it was like when I had to put my dog to sleep. Both of them, actually. It's like making that choice, and also being okay with the choice is one thing. That you can get over that hump, but acknowledging the pain, the connection, the change that animal's no longer going to be there is part of the grieving. It's like honoring, like, oh, I'm sad. I'm deeply sad. Like really like feeling into your heart and like moving it out. Because if you're sitting on a chair and you're not moving and you're wondering why I'm feeling depressed, I'm not happy, and what's going on here? I don't get it. Like that's all the more reason to get up and move your body, to shake that shit out. Put on some music, dance it out. Put on some music, cry it out. Movement is medicine. Because if you don't move it, you'll lose it. But if you don't move it, it'll sit stagnant in you and create more dis-ease. Because in order to get into the ease of life, you have to go through the dis-ease, the discomfort. So the more you're willing to feel the pain, the more you're going to draw of the joy. You're going to actually, because this is the thing in life, you cannot circumvent. You can't go around it. You have to go through it. Whatever it is in your life, if pain is coming up for you, that pain has purpose. It's teaching you. It's teaching you how willing you were to love and to experience what it was that now you're in deep grief over losing. Even if you don't feel like it's a loss and it's just a change, you think, oh, well, I'm just changing jobs, so what's the big deal? Your routine is changing. You're going to get up one morning and go, oh, that's right, I'm going somewhere completely new. Or like the cat situation. It's like, oh, that's right, I don't have to worry about the cat now because she's gone. I don't have to feed the cat. I don't have to clean up after the cat. The other cat's going to be sad. You know, there's so much to be reflected upon when you are going through the changes of life. To also be gentle on yourself, to give yourself compassion, to breathe. Slow, excuse my French, slow the fuck down. Do you know why we have life cycles and changes? Because everything is always in motion, baby. Energy is meant to stay in motion. And when we get stuck, energy moves, whether we like it or not. Even if we're stuck in our own grooves, the energy's still going to move. And when we feel the resistance, it's because we're not allowing the flow of energy through us to move us. So when you're stuck and you're like, I don't care, I'm unhappy, you're just temper tantrum, or, you know, bullheaded, and I don't wanna, right? Like, come on, people. I mean, I'm an adult, but I still have my times where I'm like, I don't want to. I just don't want to. Don't feel like it. Is that me, or is it my inner child, or what is that really telling me? It means that I am so stuck and rigid in my own beliefs, my own BS, that I don't necessarily want to leave that comfortable space. I like what's familiar, and it supports me, because it only takes satisfying 3 of the basic human needs to constitute an addiction. And belief systems are our biggest addiction in this human form. The idea that you will go to war to defend your beliefs rather than tap into your heart and recognize what makes you happy. It's not the heart that leads you astray, it's the head that gets in the way. And every time, and I know you know this because you've had it happen in your life where you followed your head and you're like, damn it, I'm gonna follow. It makes logical sense. I know. Look at me. I know. I'm gonna prove myself right. And then it's like, oh, shit, I fucked up again. And your heart's going, I'm sorry for that, but yeah. I let you figure it out the hard way because that's the way you want to go. But the heart will always still be there with compassion. It's that drop from the head into the heart that most of us have lost the connection. True satisfaction is going to come from you trusting in your own heart more than letting the head hijack you, getting caught up in the mind virus, the 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐲. The real battle for your soul is a mental one. Is what will you give up to be right? Or what are you willing to compromise to be happy? I mean, is it really that important? This is where we find out what are our priorities? What are our values? What's important to you? What is it in this life that you truly want to experience? Because if you're stuck in the idea that it has to be a certain way and it doesn't show up that way, that's going to cause some suffering. Because if you can't accept things as they are, and you're fighting for the limitation of your mind versus recognizing, oh shit, I can't change that. I can argue all I want. You can sit there and argue in defense of what you think it should be and be mad and pissed off. You're exhausting yourself. You're wasting precious energy. I know, because I've done it, and I still sometimes do it. I'm not perfect. Not a one of us is perfect. But when we recognize that, oh shit, there I go again. The only reason I'm struggling, the only reason I'm suffering is because I want things different than the way they are, and I'm not allowing them to be the way they are. And once you recognize that little bit of a switch where you switch from being all heady about what it should be because you're caught up in the BS of your idea of what it should be and it didn't meet your expectations. It's like the moment you recognize that's your head hijacking you, and it's only going to bring you to more suffering if you continue to let it rule and run over you, that when you come back to the heart and you go, you know, you're right, I can't change this. So can I change the way I'm responding and showing up to it as opposed to fighting with it? Because the more we're fighting and trying to force, the less power we have. Because it's about emotional regulation, your nervous system. It's about recognizing, getting back into the observant mind, the witnessing of the temper tantrum the mind is actually trying to trip you up with, because you need to master the mind. Otherwise, the struggle shows the mind has control over you. So when you can recognize, oh shit, there goes that mind again. It's making me all uneasy, right? I'm feeling discomfort because I'm battling with my mind. The body starts to tense up when the mind starts getting on its crazy tailspin, when it's going in the grooves, right? The record player's playing and it's so deep in those grooves, it can't get out of itself. And so when you're that caught up in your mind, you have to step back and go, ooh, take the reins off of this one, baby. Breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Slow down and observe what's really going on. And where is this originating? And why do you even have that rigid dogmatic belief that things need to be that way. What if it's okay that they didn't turn out the way you wanted them to? You may not see it in the moment, but the universe has bigger and better plans for you. And if you could just take your hands off the reins, take your head out of the game, step back and just observe. Breathe through it. Tap into your heart. What is here for me? What is the message? What is the message? Because it's showing that you got a trigger. And a lot of times, and I, myself included, I dealt with this a lot throughout the course of my life. We want to control our external environment. But that's because we don't have control over our internal environment. If you don't have the ability to regulate your own emotions and your nervous system, you will try to control your externals. It'll give that appearance that you think you got things under control, but you don't. That doesn't serve anybody. It causes more friction and resistance around you with the people in your life too. It's always a sign, it's always an indicator when you're telling people how they need to be to make you feel better. Or when you react to someone else and the way they're feeling or they're expressing themselves, which is healthy, by the way. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm really fucking pissed right now. It's a difference of actually directing that towards someone versus expressing it and owning it. Huge difference, huge disparity there. And you need to learn to discern. If you are somebody who is dysregulated and projectile vomit on others because you don't know how to internally regulate that. So the internal awareness is, fuck, I don't know how to deal with this. Well, you got to move your body. And if you're the person that sits on the couch all the time, then I guarantee you deal with depression, anxiety, and all the things because your body needs to move to get that shit out of your own groove. Move it so you get out of your groove. Remove yourself from the belief systems. Remove yourself from the grooves that have been hardwired into you. Because all belief systems are you thinking a story, a thought over and over again to the point where you started believing it. It doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it right. But you're in defense of it or it wouldn't exist. So again, here we go back to what is more important to you? What is your priority in life? And what is it you want to experience? Because yeah, we can just get caught up in the woulda, coulda, shoulda. But in the ultimate grand scheme of things, what is wrong with what is that you would fight against it and create your own suffering, thinking, conceptualizing, creating a story around why it needs to be that way? Because you could be losing a whole beautiful myriad of experiences and opportunities as a result of you creating a whole story around why it should be. And then at the same time, you're missing your own mark and you're disconnected from your body. Because when you're up in here, this is not in the present. Like your body will be reacting to the mind because it is the tattletale on the mind. The body is always telling the truth. But most people are so disconnected from their bodies, they can't see. 5 senses. Thinking isn't one of them. Observing is part of the spidey sense that gets heightened as a result of heightening your 5 senses. You can see, you can hear, you can smell, you can taste, you can touch. And the more you're willing to feel the feels, the more you heighten your awareness around what you feel. It's not this, I don't want to feel that pain, which you will never feel what you felt in the past. The mind is concocting the story around protecting you, but it's not protecting you. Because again, when you numb the pain, you numb the joy. The more you resist something, the more it will persist. And actually, that is the law of attraction, because consciously or unconsciously, you're holding on to the pain by claiming you don't want to feel it. You're creating that resistance that is appreciating and drawing more of that to you. That's the law of attraction. That's the one thing they didn't talk about in The Secret and all the things. They didn't talk about the subtle undertones of, like, you have this belief system, oh, I am a powerful manifester and I am living the life of my dreams. They didn't touch upon the unconscious demoting belief system that was over here going, I don't fucking believe that shit, by the way. I'm saying it, but I still don't believe it. Like, you're fighting yourself. Like, that takes some harnessing. That takes some real, like, humbling. It takes practice. It takes awareness. It takes journaling. It takes being present. Because most of the time, we're not present. We're avoiding. We're in confrontation avoidance. We're runners. I was a runner. I know this physically. I had to stop running. My physical body said, this is too much. You're running to the point where you're not actually listening to the body. And that was a manifestation of my environments and everything else that went along with it. You can use all sorts of external distractions to keep you occupied. But that's outsourcing your power. And that's not actually being present. Although meditation is single-minded focus, sometimes we use even those spiritual things to take us out, or these righteous ideas around why we're doing what we do, always creating a story. And the question always comes back to you, how's that serving? How's that working out for you? How's that showing up in your life? All of us tell stories. It's the question of whether it's a promoting story or a demoting story. Are you telling the story of the victim, or are you telling the story of the victor? And often the victim is also telling like they're the persecutor, because they're persecuting and it's a boomerang effect. So when you are in the victimhood mindset, you are in survival mode, you are constantly seeking to defend yourself. You will draw to you that which needs to be defended. That one I learned firsthand, not once, but several times in my life. And I started connecting the dots and going, oh, shit, I'm pretty damn powerful at this. And I've seen it in my family. I've seen it in friends. And I'm like, wow, great example. So I can talk about narcissism because I've experienced it. But I also want to touch upon narcissism from the perspective of the longer you stay in a toxic relationship, the more you start taking on those behaviors too. So you can say and bitch, moan, and groan about your partner and say they're this and they're that, and you can label them all you want. That doesn't make you the better person. You're tolerating it. You're still dealing with it. So you talking about it is you trying to convince yourself that you're better, and you're not. By tolerating, by continuing to live out that story, what you're actually doing is disempowering yourself, but you're also taking on their personality. Because as you tell the story about their personality, you're actually creating yours. So if you've ever been in a toxic relationship, you've been with a partner that's abusive, verbally, emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever it is, and we've all had something to some degree, start to pay attention to your own behavior. Start to listen to your own words. Start to notice how you, yourself, treat others. You may claim to be gaslighted, but you may also be somebody who is learning how to gaslight because of it. The longer you stay in those toxic relationships, the harder it is to get out, but you're also learning how to be that same person you are with, because you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Don't deny yourself that, because in it, yes, you've learned about the narcissist, but now you're becoming it, because the longer you're in it, you will become it. Most people don't see that that's what ends up transpiring. They just assume, oh, poor me, I'm the victim, I'm in a narcissistic relationship. What the fuck are you still doing in it? Yeah, I understand firsthand what it takes to get out, and it takes a lot of courage is the first thing. Number 1, it takes a lot of times you calling in a third party so you can have a witness to remove the person from your life or to remove yourself from that environment. You need to have a strong support network, yes. But you have to be strong for yourself. And if you have children, even more so, to recognize when you need to get the hell out. Because the more you stay there, the more you're actually exposing yourself to those behaviors that become yours. And if you tell the story, what you don't hear yourself when you're doing the same things being done unto you. So if you truly want to be healthy, and this is just one example, because it's in a lot of things, you have to stop and question, who are the 5 people that I spend the most time with? Are they lifting me up or putting me down? And then notice how that affects you and the way you behave with others. When I was first stationed, and I was first in the Air Force, I was stationed in Korea. And there were some people that you do this. You find your group of friends and you hang out with them. And there was this one person I found that she affected me. I mean, this is me being an awareness of myself back when I was 20 years old, how this person's negativity, their complaining, their constant was like nails on a chalkboard. But I also noticed the more I was around it, I started to exhibit the same behaviors. And I would catch myself saying things negative or sounding like nails on the chalkboard. And because of that, I actually had to call it out in myself and acknowledge that I couldn't be around that person very long. And I shared that with a couple friends. I said, listen, I love her. I like her, but I don't want to be like her. And I want to be better. And unless you want to be better, you will choose bitter. And so, it's a bitter pill to swallow, seriously. That you may claim to love or like people or people that you are loyal to, but you also have to question, is that raising you up or putting you down? Because if it's not raising you up, you may be using that as a way to lift yourself up, thinking, well, I'm better than them. Because that's another unhealthy trait that ends up happening, as we will hang out with people that aren't at our level so that we'll feel like we're above people. It's self-serving. It's not healthy. So different personalities, some people will put others down because that's the only way they know to raise themselves up. They don't recognize that they themselves are unique and valuable as who they are because they don't value themselves. And yes, of course, all of this goes back to self-value and you trusting and knowing you're here to serve. And we're all here to serve one another through the gifts and the unique beauty of, like, hello, you and I, we're both souls. We both decided, hey, we're going to incarnate in this life. We're going to have experiences. Let's try not to attach to the meaning of them all the time, because that tends to diminish and remove the beauty of the experience. Man has created the judgment in this world. Like, most people are still mimicking and saying the same script of God is a jealous God. He's an envious God. That is not the God I know. God is going to judge you at the end of your life. Bullshit. That's man. Man is the one who is putting all that pressure on us, ourselves included. The oldest spell book in all of history is the Bible. Bible. B-Y-B-U-L-L, Bible, B-A-A-L. This is Satan's den. Come on, people. All the spell casting, all of the sorcery, the black magic, all the shit, it's because we're not allowing and recognizing what is right in front of our faces. That until you tune into your own music, your own frequency, your vibration, you will be at the behest and under the spell of the stories you are willing to submit to and outsource yourself to, and then you reinforce it by telling the same story. Like when I was a child, I'll never forget this. So, you had Sally Struthers on the TV begging for money for all the starving kids in Africa. And I'll never forget, we'd sit at the table and my parents would be like, you need to eat all your food on the plate because there are kids starving in Africa. Like, kids are clever. The first thing we were like, well, can we send our food to Africa? Because, like, we're seeing a solution in that. We don't know about cost of shipping and handling and all the things. But you know what I mean? Like, it's this whole, like, make you feel guilty for having a good life, to reinforce and to influence you to do at their will. Judgment doesn't serve anyone. Discernment is just taking information and making a choice based on that information. Judgment is what has gotten us in so much trouble in this world. The idea that we are colors or creeds or nations, they created countries, states, territories, borders, colors, nationalities, all this stuff to control us, because they can get us to fight against each other based on this loyalty idea, this ideology, false idolatry. The ideology is the idolatry. The idea that the belief systems have got you caught up in the false idolatry. The two words they're subtly different, but they're the same. They're duplicitous. Ideology, idolatry, alliteration. And even if it's spelled differently, you have to listen deeper to the meanings, deeper to what's being said, deeper to what your five senses are picking up on. Like, really tune in. You need to learn to understand so you can overstand what's going on around you. If you see something in the world and it triggers you, that's unresolved in you. We all have it. I must stand up for the justice of such and such. Well, maybe it's because you didn't stand up for yourself in some area of your life that you feel the need to do it outside of your life. Because that's what tends to happen with the martyr. I have to right the wrongs of others to also somehow, in this belief system around, maybe it'll somehow fix and heal me. We need to be right with ourselves, first and foremost. When we start getting right with ourselves, we'll be right with the world. The world will catch up to us. But interestingly enough, this is the problem that we are facing, is that we get caught up in what's going on out there and it hijacks us. Instead of recognizing, yes, there's a lot of atrocities that happen in the world. We didn't even know about them until we had all of this access to information overload, propaganda. They only tell you what they want you to know, just like our history. You know, the victors aren't always the good guys, people. And yet here we are defending the victors, who were pretty much abusers, accusers, and all sorts of who knows what. I was listening to someone's video earlier today, and I was reminded what really rules this world is necessity. Think about that. What is necessity? It's survival. So if you are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you are living in the stress response, the cortisol. That means you're not in the parasympathetic nervous system. You're in the sympathetic nervous system. When you are emotional, which is what that is, you become irrational. You make the worst choices when you're emotional than when you are actually in the parasympathetic. Rest and digest. Let's breathe through this. Like, you need to calm yourself and claim yourself. Like, really breathe into your body and be present. And like tap into, because this is our true tuning fork. Like, you really need to be tuned up and tuned into your own frequency. If your tuning fork is getting like off pitch, you need to move, you need to breathe, you need to come into homeostasis. If you are in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that sympathetic nervous system response, that's when you need to step back and pause. Don't allow yourself to get caught up in the, I need to act now, I need to respond, I need to react. Because all that's going to do is put you into regret. Think about how many times you've had to make a last minute split decision that really sets your nerves on like fray. It's very rare, unless it's a true life or death situation, that you will make a informed decision. Because in a true life or death situation, which is not typically what the mind reacts to, you literally will have to run or you will have to fight. And it's not this threat to the ego. It's a literal physical threat. That's where you'll make the better response, because that's the whole purpose of the sympathetic nervous system. But again, it's about resilience and being able to bounce back and forth between them healthily, that you're not in constant chronic stress, which causes the cortisol to break down your nervous system and your wiring, your body, like immune system, inflammation. Cortisol is pumping through your blood. It's meant to get you instantaneously to safety. But if it's constantly pumping through your body, now it's breaking you down. There are benefits to cortisol, but not when it's over the course, literally coursing through your blood and your veins to the point where you basically have now reduced your efficacy. So, going back to this is part of the trick, and I'm going to go back to the story around the witch hunts. If you go back in history and you look at, back during the witch hunts, these black magic sorcerers just showed up randomly and let's say in a village, and they basically said, and they're trickery. This is some serious fuckery. You're living in a village and these people just randomly show up and they said, we're hunting witches. Prove to us that you are or you aren't a witch, and I'll show you how you have to prove yourself. See, now you don't even know who these people are, and their actual, you don't know if they're trustworthy. But because out of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, they are putting you on a physical threat. And they're basically getting you to submit to their wills by tricking you into injecting something into you. Vaka, meaning cow pus, scene, which is obscene. So you get this vaka scene, and they basically have convinced you that the only way we're going to allow you to live is you prove that you're not a witch. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is I have a method, and you must submit to my method, which means you have to voluntarily decide if this person, this individual, is going to be able to pharmakia, inject you with something, sorcery. This is a spell. This is the spell casting, and how it, if you look at that, they were able to get people to submit. And let me get this clear. The moment you give up your bodily autonomy and they're able to get you to submit voluntarily, now they think, oh, see how easy that was? What else can we get them to do now? That's some fuckery. And all of spell casting is really about influencing you. We call it manipulation in most cases, but it's an influence because you're always choosing. And their trickery is to get you to choose. So it's not like they act like they forced you. Oh, we didn't force you to do it. We didn't force you to do anything, but you were under duress because you felt like your life was at stake. So it's that under duress. It's not that you were physically threatened, though in your mind you thought you might have been. You didn't question, you didn't get them to prove themselves as to, wait a minute, who are you? And why is this relevant to me that you should accuse me? Prove that you have some form of a reason to even come at me like that. Like, this is how they've tripped humanity up. Is most people are on the defense and the offense to the point where they don't recognize the Jedi mind trick that's going on or the spell casting. They don't actually recognize this is the trauma of humanity, the constant proving yourself worthy of love and affection, and then proving yourself innocent. You should not have to prove yourself innocent to anybody. That's the trickery. And that's how this whole game got started, is by disempowering you, by getting you to submit to their will. That's the sleight of hand. Their hand never gets dirty because they've gotten you to go along with them, to allow them to govern, to rule over your mind. So tell me again why it is we would defend somebody or some entity, some dead corporation to govern over us. until we become ungovernable, meaning you take personal accountability, personal responsibility over your existence and the choices you make. Nobody has the right to dictate or govern you unless you allow them to. And again, that in itself is voluntary. All of it is. Yes, there's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of recognizing that I have to correct my status because we do not want to be called CPR, a citizen, a resident, or a person. It's all part of their spell. It's all part of their language. When you speak in their language, which is how we were all raised. See, again, going back to the education system, used to be to raise a child, it takes a village. The education system wasn't meant to ever be under the guise of an entity, a dead entity at that. It was supposed to be the community. It was supposed to be the schoolhouses like it used to be. And back then they used to educate you on your correct status, on your nationalism versus this patriotism, whatever the heck, this really crazy admiralty, maritime admiralty law, the law of the water. We're not even on water, but they're using spells to keep us going along to get along. And it's not God's law. And it's up to us to become ungovernable so they can no longer rule over the mind. But you got to be able to wrap your head around it and feel it in your body too. Because most people will find the comfort in the known and the familiar. Well, I know the rules of this and I'm afraid to get in trouble with authorities. They're not even authoritative. They're just getting you to submit to what you've established as what you think your interpretation is of their rules. They're not laws. They're unlawful. They are under corporate law. And a lot of it's tacit, meaning we didn't even know we were under it. But they got us to submit. Because as each generation goes through, we lose more information. Why do you think they come after the children? They come after the elderly. Because the elderly have wisdom to pass on. And if they forget it, Alzheimer's, dementia, hello, statins, like you lose your capacity to share information and it never gets passed on. Unless you are a seeker who is constantly looking for the information to support. Liberty versus freedom. There's a huge difference, as Bill Cooper would say. Oh no, it was also, Bill Cooper said that, but also Jordan Maxwell. You know, liberties are granted. Like Lady Liberty, she's not even on land. She's over the sea. That's another messed up mind game. But freedom has to be defended. And what are we here for if it isn't to have freedom of movement, the liberty to the pursuit to liberty, I'm sorry, hold on. Each and every one of us should have free access to electricity, to water. Hi there. Access to everything that God has put on this planet. Why are we paying to live on this planet? Can someone explain that? This is the craziness. This is the spell casting. And until you recognize and own it, because I'd say the hardest part for most people is getting over the anger that they've been deceived and tricked all these years. Everything you thought you knew was a lie. That's the first thing. You got to get angry. It's part of the cycles of, the cycles of awareness and consciousness. The vibrational frequency. David R. Hawkins, Power versus Force. Great book. I highly recommend it. It will increase your vibration as well. He's the one who put together the scales of consciousness based on kinesiology and muscle testing. Anger shows you care. Most people have to actually get angry to affect them to make change in their lives. And as I started out this video talking about changes like death, and change is constant, We just don't like the profound changes. We don't like the little changes, but we're fighting against it, and yet we have to allow and accept it. Like, this is the paradox, but also the push and the play and the dance that we have in this divine comedy of life. That when you have humility and you can find the humor in it, you're going to start to notice that when you get both halves of the story, the wholeness comes together, and you're like, oh, I see how you play there. Here I am praying for something, but you're preying upon me. Duplicity, duality, polarity, it's all in there. Every word has at least two meanings. Make sure that you are very much in awareness of the duplicity in languaging, because that's how they prey upon us, because we're using their words that they have set in motion. And until you start using things like overstand and understand, yeah, praying or praying, rather than understand, which is where they want you under them, standing under them, that in itself is used a lot to trick you and trip you up. Do you understand? They're putting you on notice that you stand under them. That's part of the fuckery. I love that word, just saying. And where we are in the world is a reflection of our consciousness. But it only takes a few of us to really get our shit together, to where you start to see the domino effect taking its form, and it ripples out, because this is, again, the law of the currency, the current, right? Again, the mind. Your mind is the bank. Your thoughts are the currency. So when you have the thoughts, where attention goes, energy flows. And when you allow your attention to focus on something, you are literally creating matter. You are literally materializing, manifesting into form because of the attention, the appreciation, this money, hello. You are literally paying for your experience in this life. So you can say, again, you can go back and listen, what I was talking about. The story you tell is also the casting of the spell. You are reinforcing, if you're telling the story of your abuser, your accuser, of your enslaver, of the person ruling over your mind, you're also reinforcing their spell casting. And the word cast, for example. You are the actor, you are the producer, you are the director of your story, of your life. All the world's a stage. They're casting hook, line, and sinker, right? So casting, aligned, see who will buy it, hook, line, and sinker. I've talked about that in the past. But also, look at the word cast. Remember the times of feudalism and the caste system with the E at the end? No difference there. Actors are cast. There's a system of caste system. So remember, again, let's just reflect upon the stories you're telling. Reflect upon the environment you are exposing yourself to, because everything in your environment is a product of the story you're telling. Challenges are what we make life interesting, and overcoming them, because we need to be challenged in life or we don't grow. Nothing, like I said earlier, nothing happens inside of your comfort zone. So you need to be shaken and stirred. You need to be churned, because that's the only way you'll grow. And so change is inevitable, and change is like death, but you also have to mourn that process. You have to be willing, yes, to live in a world where most people exist or they're dead before they die, right? So it's really up to us to claim the story we want to tell, and tell it very well. Tell the true story, the truth of who you are, not the story you've been told, and like a parrot, you continue to cast your own spell. Because what you tell in your story is reinforcing it in your life. What is your reality and what is your story? They're mirroring each other back and forth. We can be the victim, or we can claim to be the victor. And again, when we work on ourselves, we affect the whole, the collective. That collective consciousness we are contributing to, and we are receiving from at all times. When you hear other people speak, notice the themes. of the stories that are being spoken, or the theme of where we're at in the collective. Oftentimes, from my personal experience, I will get a theme in my meditation, in my dreams. I'll just pick up on what am I reflecting upon, what is dropping in. And then I'll listen to certain people and I'll be like, isn't that interesting? And the languaging, I can tell that they're tapped in to that collective consciousness, because we tend to grasp and bring in the same languaging, and the way that we communicate it with clarity, it's intention too. Because you have to come with the heartfelt, heart-centered intention of clarity, brevity, and also inspiration. That your words inspire. They don't just fall upon deaf ears. Like when I speak, my intention is always let whoever needs to hear this receive it, and let it spark that fire and that flame within them. Because we all need to be reminded of our power. And sometimes just listening to something I say or somebody else, it might remind you of your power. Because what you see in another is an aspect reflecting back to you. It's mirroring you. Whether you admire it, and also when you despise it, it's all you too. Own it so it doesn't own you. That is the key. Exactly. And in the first thing in the morning, recognize where you're at, because you can shift that. The moment you're in awareness that, oh, I stubbed my toe. Just pause. Love on your toe. Thank you, toe, thank you, toe, for recovering quickly from that. It feels like a little tickle. Like you have to shift the way you see what has transpired. Because if you get stuck on that bad thing, then everything else falls in line with that. Because again, where attention goes, energy flows. The universe, God, source, it will give you more of that because you're fixated on that one little thing. That's how powerful manifestors we truly are. And so, that was a lot. I've got a Christmas party to go to at my gym. So much love to all of you. Thank you for sticking it out for my third round on this, because, you know, it's Mercury retrograde shenanigans. There's a lot of technology and truth speaking going on right now. I truly am here to inspire you through my inspired living, that I'm here to uplift, support, inspire, and hopefully empower you to step into the truth of who you are, to be the best version of you. That every day, you're not competing with others, you're competing with yourself, to be the better version of yourself from yesterday. Exactly. You always want to start where you're at, because there's always an opportunity for a fresh start. And so, I bid you adieu. I hope you have a wonderful, fabulous Saturday, Saturn day. The rings around the finger, you know, do you know that the middle finger is the finger of Saturn? There's a saying in Kundalini Yoga, you don't want any more rings around Saturn, because otherwise it brings you more lessons to learn. And some of us, we're really good at those lessons. Sometimes we're kind of a glutton for punishment, but at the same time, lessons always have silver linings, and lessons are always blessings. You know why? Gets you quicker to where you're going. When you acknowledge those lessons, you learn from those lessons, rather than continue to repeat them, ignore them, fight with them. Take the lesson from the experience, apply it, integrate it, and there comes your wisdom. You will gain more wisdom with humility and humbleness than you will with a strong, rigid belief and will, right? There's that word will. Duplicity in the word will. Will you? You will, meaning you deem it to. So I can continue on and on and on, but I love you so much. Thank you for tuning in. And let me know in the comments what it is you might want to see me talk about more. And stay tuned. I'm putting together a collaborative community for us to grow together because we need one another. And you know what? I recognize I need to create a community that also supports me as well as I can support you. So enjoy your blessed evening.